Call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. We have an adoption of the agenda, please. Adoption by Councillor Meister. Moving on, regular minutes, February 14th, 2002. Can we have someone adopt those regular meeting minutes from them?
Those minutes looked lovely. I would like to move the minutes.
Adopted by Councillor Carlson. All in favor of those adoptions? Moved. Moving on to public hearing, Bylaw 1736. Abe?
Yeah, so we'll get a motion to recess from the council meeting and then a motion to open the public hearing, please.
Make a motion that we open the public hearing.
Motion to adjourn first.
Oh, okay. Somebody else do that.
All motion we close?
Motion by Councillor Kettles to close. Do we question that?
So moved by Councillor Kettles to adjourn the regular meeting to hold the public hearing at 7:01 p.m.
Motion to go into public hearing. Motion by Councillor Zimmer. Question.
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to open the public hearing regarding bylaw number 1736 at 7:02 p.m.
All in favor? Have we had anyone reach out from the public in regards to this?
We have not. So this is a public hearing for bylaw 1736, which is a land use bylaw amendment to redesignate a piece of property from no zoning. As you recall, this was previously part of a road closure bylaw, and go from no zoning to single detached residential. So no comments or concerns from the public on this, and council's in favor. Would like to proceed to second and third readings of this tonight, but not at this time, of course.
Any questions from council? No? Move to close by Councillor Carlson. Anything else? Question?
Moved by Councillor Carlson to close the public hearing at 7:03 p.m.
All in favor? Motion passed.
Make a motion to reconvene regular meeting.
Thank you. Motion by Councillor Zimmer to resume regular meeting. Question?
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to reconvene to the regular meeting at 7:03 p.m.
All in favor? Moving on to action items. Bylaw 1735, dog bylaw amendment. Abe?
Yeah, so at the end of last year, we had a situation where there was a dog who had bit someone and was given deemed an aggressive or dangerous dog through the town's bylaw. And the bylaw, as it read, we felt didn't give us enough provisions to actually follow that aggressive dog. And so what the owner did was gave that dog away. The bylaw read that you can't sell the dog, but didn't say that you couldn't give the dog away. Having this process in place for a town is, for an aggressive dog, there's actually a lot of responsibility to make sure you do it properly. And so we've added some provisions that are consistent with other areas regarding managing a dog after it's been deemed aggressive. And so we've just got some changes here. And I'll just go through them real quick with council. The first change we're suggesting is that after the dog has been declared aggressive or dangerous, that they need to have it registered with a microchip, and that microchip contains information about that aggressive designation. Secondly, that the owner of the aggressive dog provides town proof of liability insurance in the area of $500,000 to cover if the dog does attack someone. And again, these provisions are fairly standard with other aggressive dog bylaws. And as well, if that coverage has to contain Insurance policy needs to contain a provision requiring the insurer to immediately notify the town in writing in the event that the policy expires. And so we need to be kind of in the loop on that. And the owner of the aggressive dog can not transfer ownership of the dog prior to having the electronic identification microchip implanted in the dog. And then has to have the dog licensed through the town. And any person that transfers a dog to a new owner or gifts it to a new owner has to notify the town in writing as well that they've transferred the dog. We need to know the address so we can contact the new owner and the new municipality where the dog is gone to. And sometimes that is actually a problem where people will give an aggressive dog away to a new municipality, and there's no way to actually track that information and that designation. And so what we would be looking to accomplish with that provision is just simply notifying the new, if the dog is given to a new to an owner in a new municipality, passing that information on. That's all we'd be trying to do there. There are also a couple of clerical errors that we're just looking to tidy up. We've noted those as well. So that's Bylaw 1735. It's on the agenda if council's prepared to pass first reading. Any questions on that?
Councillor Schlossberger.
Who has the capability to read the microchip?
Veterinarians would read the microchip.
What if the owner refuses to install a microchip?
We do have that, you'd be subject to a fine, and that microchip needs to be in place before you can get the dog licensed. The way this reads, before you can get the dog licensed with the aggressive dog license. So that's the process that we're requiring up front prior to getting that license. And if you don't do that, then violations in accordance with the bylaw.
Do we currently have the technology to read those chips?
The vet in town can do that, yeah.
Does he?
Yeah.
Any other questions on this? Councillor Meister.
I'm kind of curious about the process of deeming a dog dangerous and aggressive. How does that happen? Is it one attack, two attacks, bruises, blood, like another animal, a human being?
Yeah. So the provisions of the existing bylaw state how the dog is deemed aggressive. And so without provocation, the general wording is without provocation if you attack a person or an animal, and even if you chase someone without provocation, that would probably not likely proceed to an aggressive dog designation by chasing someone. However, biting can lead to that, and then the investigation would be a report would be completed by the town, and that actually ultimately falls upon me to by way of official correspondence about that designation. And that is fairly, a lot of this is fairly standard with how municipalities deal with the process of deeming a dog dangerous or aggressive. But we are lacking a little bit in town here on the other side of that. Once the dog has been deemed dangerous or aggressive, how we kind of monitor, I guess, that designation and those dogs.
That was kind of my next question, is how do we know which dogs in our neighborhood have been deemed dangerous and aggressive? Like, we have our suspicions about some of them, but
Yep.
how do we know after it's actually
Well,
been?
And residents are supposed to post, there are a few provisions once the dog has been deemed aggressive, and we're still a little bit lax even after some of these changes, a little bit lax with some of that, but supposed to post like a signage that the dog has been deemed dangerous or aggressive. And we would have record of that through the licensing system in town. It's not going to be necessarily common knowledge to everybody, but we try to keep information in the town about that.
Okay.
Any further questions? Would anyone like to make a motion for this amendment for first reading?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councillor Carlson to approve this amendment and first reading? Is that correct?
First reading of the amended bylaw.
Yeah,
Yeah,
amended.
amended, yeah, 1735.
Question?
Moved by Councillor Carlson to give bylaw number 1735, a dog bylaw amendment, first reading.
Any further thoughts or considerations? All in favor? Motion passed. Moving on to bylaw 1736, land use bylaw and amendment. Abe?
So we did have a public hearing a few minutes ago about this land use bylaw amendment. It's on the agenda for second and third reading tonight, which is to redesignate a piece of property from no zoning to single detached residential. This is bylaw 1736.
Make a motion for second reading.
Motion by Councillor Cutler, second reading. Question?
Moved by Councillor Cutler to give bylaw number 1736, a land use bylaw amendment, second reading.
Thank you. Any further thoughts with this, considerations? All in favor? Motion passed. Can we have a motion for a third and final reading? Motion by Councillor Kettles for a third and final reading. Question?
Moved by Councillor Kettles to give bylaw number 1736, a land use bylaw amendment, third and final reading.
Any further thoughts? All in favor? Motion passed. Moving on to delegation response, Claresome RCMP detachment. Okay.
Just a follow-up, council, to the delegation that we had last council meeting. From the RCMP, well, the RCMP were looking for the priorities for the year. And part of their community engagement is to connect with council to see what their priorities are. Just a review of the current priorities, their traffic safety, school playground patrols, and intersect violation enforcement. Number 2, police, community relations, and police visibility, foot patrols, enhanced visibility shifts, and presentations to the community. And the 3rd, crime reduction and prevention of property crimes. So offender checks, media awareness campaigns, and decreasing thefts from vehicles. So those were the 3 priorities from the previous year. The RCMP are talking with people in town right now, getting their thoughts on what priorities should be, general residents in town through town surveys. I think they're also going to be reaching out to the community at the town hall as well, looking for feedback, and they're also looking for council's feedback. And so if we can get a motion on that tonight, we will forward what your priorities, what council would like their priorities to be onto the RCMP, and they'll use that information to compile their town priorities for the year. They have offered information, or rather options, on what other priorities you could focus on, but just turn that over to you for discussion.
Any thoughts with this?
No, I think the current 3 are still your big ticket items throughout town.
Councillor Cutler?
I'd like to see a little bit, I wouldn't mind seeing drug enforcement pushed up there.
That was one of my top ones as well. I would like to not have to search my backyard for dirty needles to let my child go out and play, so that's a big one for me. Yes, a quiet little neighborhood. Anyone else?
I agree with
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember listening to him last time he presented, and they said they were quite ahead of the schedule on the traffic and safety and control the school intersections and stuff, so I would recommend we drop traffic safety and push up drug enforcement.
Counselor Kettles?
I have concerns about dropping the traffic safety, at least as far as around the schools. It's always a concern to me around West Meadow and how close it is to the road and how busy it is. And I'd rather have it replace, maybe community relations and foot patrols and so on. I agree, though. I'd like to see drug enforcement on the list somewhere.
But what they said last time too, it's not like they would drop it and stop going by there. They would just keep up their routine. It just wouldn't be one of their priorities, right? So they're going to keep the monitoring in this school searches. But
And I understand that, Councillor, but if something goes sideways there and we chose to drop that, we'd look pretty poor, whereas what's going to go sideways by dropping foot patrols?
Could they not combine, like at drug enforcement, when you're looking at crime reduction and prevention of property crimes, a lot of times, not a lot, I guess I'm not an expert, so I would assume that a lot of times crime reduction and prevention would go hand in hand with drug enforcement to see if there's, safe places to use, looking for spare change, looking for all of those. To me, those are things that could possibly be combined, and then the more visible that they are, the less likely if they're in parks and schools and they continue to have those relations and those police visibility, it would in turn, prevent property crimes, prevent drug use, all of those. So just my 2 cents on the matter. And as someone who drops their child off every day at school, I'm still seeing a significant amount of illegal turns, kids almost getting hit. That is traffic safety at the schools and playgrounds, or one that I wouldn't at this point recommend that they drop as a priority. I'm still seeing near misses on a daily basis within the schools.
Do you think they could append to that third bullet point, the crime reduction, if they could append the at least a named focus on drug enforcement on there? Do you think that would give enough visibility for our concerns around the table here?
Works for me.
Me too.
Give them the information we want drug enforcement. They can prioritize it, put it in there however they can.
Why isn't it not possible for them to have 4 priorities? They all sort of go.
Yep.
They all sort of go hand in hand, right? If you're looking at, our water safety, usually we're in a drought, so that's, sorry, to me, I'm like, that's not a huge priority for the few nice days a year we have, and, for our town of Clare, so I don't think there are gonna be no one voting out on the.
Centennial Park.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot there for me to do it, but.
Well, if Patterson Pond gets flooded and, people are out in there.
So I think the best solution to this would be to just send back that we do have a concern through correspondence, ensuring that drug enforcement is on the radar as a concern of the town. Sergeant Harms can deal with that as he needs to, knowing that it is a priority for the community, as well as linked with many of the situations that are already in the top 3. It can work together. So can we send correspondence back to that?
Yes, we can.
We're gonna need, would anyone would anyone like to make a motion to recommend those following 4 priorities? Correct?
No.
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to recommend traffic safety, community police relations, crime reduction and prevention, and drug enforcement. Is that correct, Councillor Zimmer?
Correct.
Question.
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to recommend the following priorities to the RCMP for the 2022 fiscal year: traffic safety, police/community relations and police visibility, crime reduction and prevention of property crimes, and drug enforcement.
Any further thoughts or questions, additions to this? All in favor? Motion passed. Moving on, correspondence. Honorable Rick McIver, Minister of Municipal Affairs. Abe?
Yearly, the Minister of Municipal Affairs has awards for municipal excellence to try and recognize great things that municipalities and regions have done over the past year. So it looks like this year they're combining Public Library Excellence Awards and recommendations as well. So this is just correspondence to all municipalities. If there are any initiatives or programs that you saw in your municipality over the last year that might be worthy of nomination or that you would like to nominate, they're looking for nominations. And as you see, there are a number of areas there.
Thoughts or questions at this time?
I'm not overly concerned about this at this time, unless we want to nominate Abe for red tape reduction and his efforts to eliminate the extra steps that are needed for day-to-day operations.
She's trying to read whether they're serious.
I
She's trying to
I
figure out
heard
what she...
laughing.
She doesn't know. I'm
I'm
honored by the thought.
Poor girl, Schlossberger's over there laughing, and he's still giving a serious face, and she's like, I don't know what to
Do I
do.
have a question or what?
Yeah.
Yes, so are you making a motion that you would like to nominate Abe for this? or-
I'm making a motion that Abe recognizes that there's enough red tape to be accomplished that I don't think we need to worry about this year.
Okay, thank you for the clarification of that. Are we able to take this just for information at this time?
Yes.
Yes, all right. We'll take it for information then.
But on that note, a tip of the hat to Abe and his administration for doing such a wonderful job for our community.
I concur.
All right. Correspondence, Canadian Transplant Association. Abe?
So council has received a correspondence from the Canadian Transplant Association looking to recognize,
Did we skip a few things?
looking
That one
to,
was sent separately.
This was set
Yeah.
separately.
All right, that's the number 5 one. Thank you. Sorry.
I apologize.
You were forgiven.
looking to recognize April 7th as Green Shirt Day. And so the group is hoping that the town can recognize that, possibly post it on the website, light up any landmarks with green lighting. That is the color for the group, and just doing some awareness for the Transplant Association. So,
Any thoughts on this topic?
Wear green shirt.
So I have a few. They're going to seem, I know, of course I do. Currently, we don't recognize any day officially, correct? This is another one of those topics where once we officially have this, it's going to open up a whole can of worms of all other colored shirt days. So if this is to be voted in and it's all some that we all agree on, I just want everyone to be prepared for pink shirt day, orange shirt day, yellow, and every color of the rainbow as well to go alongside it. So just something I would take into consideration when thinking on this.
and
We are not changing the lights at this time, no, we are not.
my recommendation is if there was an appetite to do this, you would actually have administration draft out some kind of policy prior to actually adopting a day without a policy in place. So, and I'm definitely reading the room here that that's not going to happen, but I think if council ever wanted to go in that direction, we would have to develop a policy first, rather than just proclaiming it without a policy in place.
I think we support and promote people to wear their yellow green shirts.
Green shirts. Yeah, that's I'm leaning towards that as well, just to encourage green shirts and bring awareness to it, but to not have an official day. Any other thoughts with this?
I agree. It's not about the shirt, it's about the intent behind it and though without formal recognition, I think, I don't know if administration could draft a letter of response to this group saying something polite. And I think we're all in agreement with the background as to where they want to get with this. It's just, we just have no process to do this at this point.
Would you like a motion for that letter if everyone's in agreement?
Any direction from council
Yeah.
has got to go towards a motion.
Would you like to make that motion?
I would make that motion if it's deemed reasonable by something administration could draft for us. Just, I guess, in a way, that's opening the doors a little bit too, though, isn't it?
Administration could write that, we will.
Corinne's got it.
Right, Amanda?
I don't think
Yes.
that it's to write a letter, to, you know, to state our intention that, you know, it's not that we don't support it, it's that to officially designate it a day within our community is something we're not ready to do is a little, I think it's a really nice way of going about it.
Yeah, I think there's a way to word that to be very positive, if that's okay. So I will make that motion to administration draft an appropriate response.
Question when you're ready.
Moved by Councillor Kettles for council for administration to draft a letter of response to the Canadian Transplant Association stating that although council is not prepared to declare April 7th, 2022 as Green Shirt Day, the town of Claresholm will promote awareness of the importance of the public supporting organ donation.
Further questions? Sorry. Councillor Carlson, did you have something to say? Prior, and I looked like you did. I didn't mean to cut you off if you did.
The motion itself basically says exactly what I was going to say anyway, so happy day.
Wonderful. All right, any further questions or comments in regard to this? All in favor? Motion passed. Moving on to number 6, correspondence. Neil Barr. Abe?
Correspondence from a business owner in town who had a fire at their business in January, looking for relief of the basic sewer and water charges and the recycling charges, as they're not using those services currently at their business, and also looking for relief until the time when they are using those services again. So that correspondence, we did connect with this individual connected with administration, and we indicated that according to the utilities bylaw, these charges still have to be paid, as they cover basic infrastructure replacement costs, the basic charges, right? So so we don't have the ability to do this, and it's not our policy to do that. So the individual, we said you can always write a correspondence to council, that's your next step, and so that's why this is here.
Thoughts or comments? Councillor Cutler.
So my question is, we charge the basic rate for the upkeep and the maintenance of the sewer and the lines. Are they still being charged the daily or monthly rate of X amount of meters, but if they're not using it, they're not getting charged, right?
Yeah, that's a consumption cost. They would just pay for whatever they consumed, yeah.
Right, so right now they're just paying the service charges that everybody would pay on their building to have the access to the utilities to that building.
That's correct.
Any further thoughts or comments? Councillor Meister.
Well, like you said, according to the bylaw, everybody pays those basic rates, and I think if we let this one slide, like, it is extenuating circumstances, but other people experience those as well. If we let this one slide, then there will be more to come forward.
Yes, most likely, and there's currently no provision to allow it to slide, so.
Any further discussion on this matter?
It's almost like I can't remember how many years ago, the snowbirds.
Yep.
They wanted, because they weren't here, and we're like, well, no, if you're not paying when you're gone, but there is water, there is those services at your door, so it's a T&D or whatever that's called. So,
So at this time, do you need anything further, or just, do you need a motion to deny it?
Yeah. Just a motion to,
Take it as information.
I would say just a motion to follow our existing procedures according to the bylaws in terms of
Correspondence back.
utility rates, yeah, and we'll connect with this individual.
Would anyone like to make that motion? Motion by Councillor Cutler.
Just follow the current bylaw.
And procedures for utility charges. Yeah.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Councillor
Mike.
Cutler. I'm working. All right, question when you're ready.
Moved by Councillor Cutler to follow the current procedures regarding utility charges in the case of the property located at 4605 First Street West.
Any further discussion with this? All in favor? Motion passed. Moving on, request for decision, letters of support, Pearsome Egg Society.
Ag Society is looking for a couple letters of support for different grant funding opportunities they're going to apply for. The first is a community initiatives program, and that is to host an exhibition reining horse show July 28th to the 31st. And the grant provides funding up to $75,000 for cultural and sporting events. The second is the Tourism Relief Fund, and to install a new sound system. Currently, the sound system in their complex doesn't, according to the information here, doesn't really cover the area very well, and also an HRV system.
Here it comes out a lot.
The new one. So they are applying to the Tourism Relief Fund for that. Not asking for any funding from the town, just a couple letters of support.
Thoughts or comments with this? Councillor Kettles.
I'm not that familiar with the facility, but would the sound system be within the facilities, or is it for the whole complex, and then do we have to worry about outside sound and things like that?
Within.
Within?
I believe there is 2 speakers on the outside.
They can flip,
Yeah, I don't
they
think.
can turn it off outside if they want.
Perfect, thank you. That's my concern.
Councillor Cutler.
I'll move to write the letter of support for the Clerical Errors Society application to the Community Initiative Program grant for the purpose of hosting the exhibition reining the show of July 28th, 31st, 2022 at the Clerical Megaplex.
Which building?
Question.
Moved by Councillor Cutler to write a letter of support for the Claresholm Ag Society's application to the Community Initiatives Program, the SIP grant, for the purpose of hosting the exhibition reining horse show on July 28th to 31st, 2022 at the Claresholm Agriplex.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Motion passed. Are we able to get another motion for the Tourism Relief Fund for a letter of support?
I would like to make that motion.
Motion by Councillor Zimmer. Question?
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to write a letter of support for the Claresholm Ag Society's application to the Tourism Relief Fund for the purpose of installing a sound system and HRV system at the Claresholm Agriplex.
Any further thoughts or considerations? All in favor? Motion passed. 8, request for decision, traffic concerns. Abe?
We got a letter from a member of the community or the extended community about a traffic concern at the northwest end of town coming off Highway 2 onto Township Road 130 and then heading south on Alberta Road. We've got that highlighted for you here, Council, of the traffic flow. So we took that concern into consideration. Essentially what happens is traffic coming from northbound traffic turns west on Township Road 130 and veers almost instantly into Alberta Road. And so the eastbound traffic on Road 130, there could potentially be a collision there. And so we did connect with Alberta Transport and looked for their opinion on what kind of signage and traffic control devices they could place on Highway 2 to improve the situation. They said they don't have anything. However, they did kind of acknowledge that this is a problem area, and what we're suggesting that we do is we place a stop sign as indicated on this map here to stop the eastbound traffic on Township Road 130. And that will allow them to have time to see the incoming traffic from Highway 2 that's turning down into Alberta Road there. Yeah.
Councillor Cutler.
So if you go back to that little design there, so you're gonna initiate a stop sign on 130, and you're gonna keep the stop sign up there on Highway 2 and 130? So they stop there, they move 7 feet, and they stop there?
Yes. Yeah, we couldn't, I don't think it'd be wise to pull that stop sign off of.
So I just don't understand what that's preventing if they stop there, but yet we move 7 feet and we stop there and there's still traffic coming.
Councillor Kettles.
This would be consistent with how we handle it on the south side, coming off the golf course as well. There's a stop sign, it's very short right now, but there's a stop sign right at the golf course to that road, and then you pull across and there's the stop sign to go onto the highway. So there is two. So it'd be consistent on the two sides.
They go across the road, you're still gonna be stopped at that stop sign when the semi-truck comes off at 2
So-
onto Alberta Road.
What the concern that was brought forth, and the citizen had come to me, coming off of Highway 2 heading south, that's still at that 100-kilometer-an-hour zone. So those vehicles are, the situations that tend to happen that they were concerned about was that a semi or a larger piece of equipment decides that they may want to go in to that service road to get a hamburger or a donut. And they make that little S turn fairly quickly, and sometimes without proper signaling. So you'll have a vehicle at that intersection, and see that vehicle, or be caught unable to see past that vehicle as it's coming along. So the theory was that the citizen has actually had a conversation with the equipment dealer as well. You'll notice that the equipment dealer has taken away a couple of pieces of equipment away from that corner. So those 2 units that would be right at that corner are now gone to give a better line of sight to the highway. And that stop sign would at least put them at a stop before they get to the highway itself, and they'd have a better line of sight for the traffic coming past any other vehicles versus being at the highway looking down and only being able to see the semi and not sure if you're clear to get out of its way or not. There's been multiple occasions where vehicles have run out into the highway to avoid collision and not sure if there's anybody behind them that's going to impact them as well. So.
And I think the issue here is it's such a short transition from Highway 2 to 130 that the semis can potentially be sticking out into the turning lane still if they're waiting. Often they don't wait for oncoming traffic, they just cut straight through and carry on to the Alberta Road.
Yeah.
And in a scenario like that where they just come through and they don't give the right of way to the eastbound traffic.
Yeah, and at speed.
Yeah, and so by having people stop, that potentially alleviates that issue.
It gives a second
It does,
opportunity
yeah.
to view it anyways.
It's a design of the traffic flow of the intersection itself
Yeah.
that's,
And it puts onus on the vehicles that are coming off of 130 to slow down, stop, look to see what's
Yeah.
happening versus pulling up to the highway and being in a potential issue.
I think it could work just the exact opposite for the smaller vehicles coming off Highway 2, knowing that you have somebody stopping, coming north on Alberta Road, and somebody stopping, going east on the 130, that you can just fly in off the highway, make that pass, and make your way to Tim Hortons.
And that's,
When you should be coming off the highway, you make your right-hand turn. Now you need to make a left-hand turn to go on Alberta Road. You're crossing the center line, so you have to stop and give the right-of-way as per normal traffic rules, not give the go-ahead to do a little.
well, and that's the, now, if you can imagine being the vehicle stopped on 130 or on Alberta Road at those two existing stoplights, and having a semi decide that they're going to come onto Alberta Road and do so in a short transition period from 110 or 120 and hit that corner doing 50K, those vehicles that are at those existing stoplights are having interactions with the trucks that are coming off at speed. So that was the citizens' concern, was how ideally they would like to see the speed limits pushed out past that point. We've dealt with Alberta Transport on that in the
Yeah.
past years, and we know exactly what their thought patterns were. It's not going to happen. So how do we put in some form of a secondary fail-safe to at least give that eastbound traffic pause to look what's coming at them versus it's definitely not the best solution for it, but with the parameters of what we've got, it's about, I think, administration and Public Works went through it and found that that's the best and I would say only extra action that we have at this time. Would that be correct, Dave?
yeah, that was, again, what Alberta Transportation said that would be one way to, probably the best way to alleviate this concern, and we felt the same way.
Could this not, sorry, I just see an issue, because once we're putting, like you said, it's 7 feet. This type of road situation there's a few of those within our community as well. One sort of over by the 7-Eleven there, you have the people, the new 7-Eleven, everyone's flying out of that 7-Eleven turn. I don't know how no one has died at that intersection yet, but it hasn't happened yet. It's only a matter of time. And then even here, just outside the town office, we have another similar one as well. We'd have to be prepared to put one here on the corner before the secondary road. I do think we could possibly ask the RCMP to have an increase of police presence in that area, as well as to try and mitigate those semis eventually. If enough tickets are handed out in that area, it'll be a well-known area of something not to do is just not saying don't do it. I'm just saying I think the issue here isn't the traffic coming onto 130 or onto the Alberta Road. The issue here is the semis who are taking that at 120 and not slowing down.
Yeah.
I see there is ways to mitigate it as well, putting in the stop sign, doing all of that. But the problem at hand is the semi drivers who aren't doing it, who aren't following.
And doing this would put a degree of liability on the vehicles heading east to ensure that they enter that intersection in a safe manner. It adds an extra layer of awareness going into that. I agree that it's not the perfect solution, but it addresses a degree of liability and awareness into that. If we pass that, it's putting up one stop sign. We address it with Sergeant Harms as a potential place to keep an eye on. But it is, again, it's a place where a collision can happen and most likely will happen. It's been avoided up to this point.
Thank you.
And it's a minimum. The number of times that scenario happens in a day is very hard to control, but there's been enough concern that the citizen brought it forward, so.
I don't disagree that adding that stop sign adds that extra layer. I just don't think it solves the problem at hand with the semi-drivers coming in at that sort of speed coming into our community down those gravel roads.
Yeah.
So, I'm not opposed to putting the stop sign there. I just think that there needs to be an additional thing on top of it.
Yeah.
Maybe that does include even Kyle, if he has extra paperwork, if he has to sit out there and do it, or RCMPs, there could be another layer to trying to solve the problem.
Do we know the speed on Alberta Road as it becomes Alberta Road? Is that at 50?
Yes.
So I worry a little bit that we're shifting liability from the trucker speeding off the highway and slamming onto Alberta Road to the person who's supposed to stop at the stop sign. However, we're also trying to keep the person alive who's supposed to stop at the stop sign. So, you balance your concerns, right? But if that's 50 kilometers by the time they hit Alberta Road, then at least there is still liability on the behalf of the trucker that they need to get that slowed down, and that could be handled somewhat through enforcement, like you say.
Two-pronged approach.
It's one stop sign.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with the stop sign. I'm just saying that if there is a problem, the problem isn't with the stop sign and the people on 130. The problem is with the semi-drivers taking that corner, going $1.20 into our community.
Yeah.
And that's, I think this, like Councillor Kettle said, this will, save lives, but the problem still exists with
So
these semis.
within a municipality, this is the one option that we've got that has the ability to aid it. So I would move that we put the stop sign up, and we've done our diligence as a community, and we will continue to deal with Alberta Highways with our concerns, because that's not going away, and I will harp on the transportation minister every time I get to address the speed issues that come through town. So if it's okay, I'd like to move to make that stop sign available.
I don't know if this would be an appropriate time to possibly amend that as well, as see if there's a possible way to give direction to RCMP about our concerns with that too, to combine.
RCMP are fully aware of what happens all over town. You see them going through right by 7-Eleven doing $1.20. You can't pull over every semi going through town. We tried that once before. Got some nasty letters from trucking companies.
But we did get a 3-second delay on our stoplight.
Yeah, I'm happy to stand by that question.
Yep. And I think it's as simple as just adding that little information in with our correspondence with Sergeant Harms as an aside. Administration can make that aware.
I'm happy with that. Question?
Moved by Councillor Carlson to direct Infrastructure Services to install a stop sign as indicated on the map at the corner of Township Road 130 and Alberta Road.
Any further thoughts or comments? All in favor? Motion passed. Any opposed? One opposed. Moving on, request for decision, International Economic Development Week. Abe?
So we received some correspondence from Alberta Southwest to declare council declare International Economic Development Week. That week is May the 9th to the 13th. And this is recognized by International Economic Development Council, as well as the economic developers of Alberta, Alberta municipalities, and RMA as well. And so the request, there's a motion, a rather lengthy motion there, that they're looking for council to approve. Just recognizing the week as Economic Developers Week.
Questions?
My opinion, this is the same as Green Shirt Day.
That's what I was going to say.
Yep.
There's a reason why we don't do proclamations.
We could have a lot.
Take it for information and move on.
I concur.
Everyone's in agreement to take it for information at this time and move on? Wonderful. Moving on, number 10, request for decision, Clarissa Winter Festival. Abe?
Yeah, so Winterfest has been on hold for a couple of years, just due to the pandemic. Going to have that economic development at the town has been busy planning that, March the 12th, by the way, for 2022. And essentially, in the past, this has been very much a community-driven event, volunteer-driven event. However, just coming out of COVID, some of those volunteers, longtime volunteers, have said, it's getting a bit much. And so the town is now, still have a lot of volunteer participation in the event, but the town administration is now doing the coordinating, by and large. And so just a little bit of information, there's $1,445 left over from the 2019 event that we didn't have. And so far this year, we've raised $1,650 for the event. So what the Economic Development Officer is hoping to do is add Winterfest to the town's approved festival events, yearly festival and events rotation, currently being Canada Day, Fair Days, and the New Year's Eve Skate. And so looking for a motion to add that Winterfest to that yearly schedule of events that the town helps host, and to share the budget funding from that as well. And it doesn't look like there's going to be a lot for this year, not a lot. There's been enough money raised that it's not going to eat a terrible amount into those budget funds for this year. So any questions or comments from council?
Councillor Schlossberger.
We have a event planner, correct?
We have, pardon?
David Wilson.
Volunteer and we have people to assist with event planning, yes.
I have concerns with our economic development officer spending too much time on stuff like this.
Would you like to elaborate, or that's it?
I don't think our EDO's best time spent is on events for Clarissa.
Councillor Cutler.
But it doesn't say in there that he would be spending the time, it'd just be the economic development officer would delegate that down to his said event planners, right? That's what I would hope. You don't want your EDO spending time on this, but you want your event planners. I concur.
Thank you.
And I think it's a little, it would be nice to be able to get a group of community volunteers again, back and motivated. Yeah, sit back for 2 seconds.
He's
It's
got five-
okay.
He's got 5
It's
minutes. Give
okay.
him his 5 minutes.
Coming out of COVID and understanding that so many groups are trying to get back into the swing of things and hosting and understanding, and the fact that many times it's the same 15, 16 people that are doing those jobs. I think Councillor Schlossberger's issue is more to the fact that economic development is more geared towards business attraction and economic development versus festival hosting. So to eliminate that task from that office, I think is a necessary thing to happen over the next year. How we come about that, there are discussions that will be required.
Councillor Cutler. Councillor Kettles.
Could we maybe make a midway decision here by saying, rather than saying 2022 and beyond, we could say 2022? And that would allow the transition for people to de-COVID themselves. And maybe we could spend some time finding where this best fits in the milieu of things that we've planned.
Have they made a powder yet to de-COVID ourselves?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Okay, as long as we've got the
COVID
powder.
ended tomorrow, I thought.
Wow.
Councillor Cutler, would you
So-
like to share?
Pardon me?
Would you like to share?
I would like to share. Again, it's not the 15 or the 20 regulars that are doing the volunteering, it's that leadership role that they're lacking because they have the volunteer and the foot's on the ground. I agree 100% of economic development. Do we not have a recreation manager? And those types of things that could be facilitated and included in this kind of programming and planning, better use of their time. But we do have an event planner. Now, I know that's through Willow Creek Immigration Services as well and stuff like that. So, I mean, a further discussion around how we utilize the tools or the toys in the sandbox, I think is something we need to move forward with.
I concur.
I think mine is, I would like to take this on for at least the 2022-2023 year. And in my notes I have, because we do have a recreational director, and previously they were looking for, what was it, an intern to come along or an assistant to come along as well. And, this would give me more inclination to apply for those grants to have that, if they were to assist with these type of festivals and activities within our community. So that's my thoughts.
So moral of the story, the town will do its best to put on a winter festival that is fabulous for our community as we get out of COVID and transition it out of an ECDEV responsibility for 2023. Cool. I'm happy with that.
Would anyone like to make that motion?
I'd love to make that motion, thank you.
Motion by Councillor Carlson. Question?
I'm just going to modify this motion a little bit.
I'd like to change it to Winterfest instead of Winter Festival, but
No, I just wanted to
bring that up first.
I think that would be too fast. On Facebook, there's a whole bunch of them that pop up, so.
I think there is a decoding about it. They're working on that. There's some economic development for you to come up with that one.
Okay. Question?
So moved by Councillor Carlson to include Winter Festival as a Town of Clarisome event for the 2022 and 2023 years, sharing the previously budgeted funds for Canada Day, Fair Days, and the New Year's Skate, as determined by the Economic Development Officer under the supervision of the Chief Administrative Officer, with future years to be determined.
Any thoughts or comments on this? All in favor? Motion passed. Moving on, request for decision, bylaw 1725, unsightly premises and property standards. Abe?
Okay, well, we have a, just, I guess, info brief or request for direction here for council. Requested that the unsightly premises property standards bylaw be reviewed, specifically the changes that council made to the RV parking. There was 2 rounds of changes to the RV parking, the most recent of which was requiring people with RV parking in the front of the house to be 3 meters back from the curb or the sidewalk, have that RV back. Between the months of November to the end of March. And so the town staff, the bylaw officer has been enforcing this, has handed out 13 or 14 warnings as of the beginning of November, and there are currently 3 properties actually in non-compliance of those bylaw amendments. And this was slightly before my time, but I believe that there was a few justifications, or not justifications, but reasons rather, for council was seeking to modify the bylaw as unsightliness. A lot of RVs were parked in front of the houses. So 1 for unsightliness, 2 for line of sight. Sometimes it creates issues on sidewalk traffic or just street traffic, and creates a line of sight issues, maybe hitting pedestrians, backing up, or on the street. And lastly, there were some concerns in town about snow drifting around these vehicles as well. And so a couple of councilors requested that this item be on the agenda for discussion. I have provided my opinion on the matter, but however, I would like you all to discuss.
Any thoughts or comments on this?
I've been approached by a couple of people, not so much trying to get out of their fines. They understand that these bylaws are here, they've been fined, they're not trying to get out of the fine. Some people use their RVs. I know of a gentleman that uses it as a drop-off point for some of his business. Like when Pure Later comes, stuff like that, they just drop it off in his RV that's at his lateway, which I don't blame him, because I wouldn't want a Pure Later guy in my house to drop off packages, and you can't just leave packages on the street. I have been driving around in the mornings, because I get up super early, drive around too, and even though we do have this bylaw, I've noticed that some people have just put gravel in their yards just to say that they got an RV pad, which I think looks somewhat worse than what they had before. And there's still an abundance of trailers that are still out there. There were the few people that did park their trailers and RV stuff in the RV storage and stuff, but for the most part, there's still a lot that are out there. I don't think we need said bylaw. I think it could be rounded up under the unsightly premises that we had before. Yeah.
Councillor Kettles.
My only concern with the bylaw as written is that in the summer it's 1 meter and in the winter it's 3 meters. And does that change in March, or does that change it? Folks aren't going to remember the distance. You know, I'm good this month, but I'm in violation the next month. So I have a little trouble with the inconsistent of the setback. That's my only comment.
When I looked through the bylaw too, and I know there was a concern about line of sight, and line of sight doesn't necessarily change between, April to October as it would versus the summer months as well. And as I reviewed it, I know that RVs, to have them within 1 meter of the sidewalk, I'd have to look, the sidewalk or curb, is understandable to me for that line of sight. But I could understand for trailers, their hitch is considered it. So if you have a 26-foot trailer, they're including your hitch on it, which that is a few extra feet of visibility. And I could see possibly having it from, the actual physical trailer part and not including the hitch. And to keep that hitch one meter away kind of complicates things a little bit. But I think if people's biggest concern was line of sight, it doesn't change in the summer months. And as a rural community, to have this my personal thought is this seems like a city bylaw versus a small rural community, but. Councillor Cutler.
July 12th, sunshine, clear skies, you can see for miles. December 13th, snowing, blowing snow, snow built up, coming around a curb. There's a definite difference in visibility and line of sight between winter and summer. A lot of the discussion was about safety, about people having trailers in their yards and people can't see for 4 houses down, whether there's kids coming down on the sidewalks. There was a reason this bylaw was put in place.
Fair enough. Councillor Salzberger.
I concur.
I remember a lot of it being for unsightly stuff and to tidy stuff up. It doesn't matter if it's June 12th or December 13th. If you've got a foot of snow on the road and your visibility is poor, maybe don't drive 50 kilometers an hour down the street. Drive 20, drive slower.
I concur.
And I can see the difference with the 3, with the 3 meters, right? When I look at it, you want the setback at least 3 meters from the sidewalk or curb. But when you're looking, and I can understand that from an RV perspective, but from a trailer perspective, a hitch is a few feet long. So if you have an extended hitch, it just, it's something I don't agree with. Councillor Schlosberger.
I have a fifth wheel trailer, so my hitch, it deters from vision. When this come out, I asked my neighbor, I said, does my trailer sitting there bother you when you're backing out of your garage? He said, most definitely.
So with that, what's the difference if you had an RV in your laneway or an F-350 Econoline van that sits 11 feet tall? Are you supposed to not park your van in your laneway because your neighbor can't back out?
My fifth wheel trailer is 32 feet long total. My half-ton truck is 22 feet. So with my fifth wheel trailer parked on my driveway, the end of the hitch is almost even with the edge of the sidewalk.
And I think this has come down, I feel like we've hit this one from 42 different angles. I think that we have adjusted and adjusted again to try and find the best balance. I view what we've got right now as presently the best balance. Again, everything's not perfect. As we talk about the traffic coming in from up north and trying to turn it onto a secondary road at 100 kilometers an hour. A lot of times municipalities set up for the incident of less thought. Or you consider the fact that Keith can be stupid sometimes, so we're going to plan that Keith is going to screw something up. And how he does that is this way. So if we put a bylaw in place that prevents that and saves a kid's life, that's a positive for the community. I'm not prepared to move on this bylaw at this time, strictly because it has been looked over by numerous community standards to ensure that it's not necessarily, though it's listed in an unsightly bylaw, it addresses safety and unsightliness. But the main concern is the safety issue, and this is how we found a way to implement it for a safer community. And I think we should be addressing it in that respect more than anything else.
So I'm gonna, if it is about a safety perspective, and I heard Councillor Cutler talk about when the snow is blowing and children are out playing. My child in blizzards doesn't tend to play outside. She tends to play outside when it's beautiful and sunny, and if we're looking at that, then I disagree about you to throw it about the safety, that it's okay to have, monstrosity trailers that are taking up and blocking lines of view and saying it's for the children's safety when kids are usually out in the street in the summertime.
Still providing the 1 meter versus 3 meters on dry roads versus snow roads. There has been extensive around done on this to ensure that it is as fair as possible. And I'll stop talking after this because it has been hashed over so many different ways. If somebody is willing to come with a full redo of this bylaw that shows better care and attention, I'm willing to look at it. But the bylaw should stay in place up until that point in time. And I don't want to burden that with administration because administration has spent months on finding the best possible solution for this.
Any other thoughts with this?
Other than, I do agree with why it was made. I see where we went. There are some times where you make something and it's trial and error and it just doesn't fit. A lot of it could be done under unsightly premises before. Like I say, this was the RV portion of it. And like I say, traveling every morning, checking town throughout the winter, there's still plenty of trailers out there. So if we're going to have a bylaw and it doesn't get fully enforced, and there's a lot of gray area and people that aren't going to do it anyway, what's the point of having it?
Councillor Schlossberger.
This isn't a big city issue. The city of Lethbridge has 0 bylaws on trailers on residential streets. I dare any one of you councilors to come with me and drive to my kids' places of residence and try to manipulate your way through narrow streets with trailers parked on the street, trailers parked all the way across the sidewalk, trailers parked right up to the sidewalk, and they have 0 bylaws. Administration researched this throughout southern Alberta, and this is what we come up with.
And if I could, I said I wouldn't speak again, but since it's time, Ed, can I have a refresher on how many warnings versus how many tickets have been issued on this?
14 warnings and 3 currently tickets, kind of non-compliance issues.
So I'm assuming that our bylaw officer is fully aware of who is and isn't in compliance.
Yes, and if there are other, we can have him circle the town again to check if there are other areas that are in non-compliance to follow up on that.
How about we do that and come back on next meeting?
Tomorrow's March 1.
Yeah, and I think it's April, so it's all of March. Yeah, so there'll still be time to enforce that.
I don't think it's necessarily, I've seen him out there with this tape measure. I think he's doing a pretty thorough job. I don't think this is by any means a bylaw officer concern. I think it was a bylaw itself concern, but I'm happy to take this for information at this time and revisit it if that's something that everyone else is content to do.
Yes.
Yes? Everyone's in agreement? Okay, we're going to move forward then to financial report, statement of operations. Dave?
Yeah, just the town's finances as of the end of January. Just pulling that up on the screen here. Not a lot to report at this point, pretty early on in the year.
Any thoughts or comments with that? Do you need a motion to accept the financial reports? We have a motion to accept the financial reports as presented.
I'll make a motion to accept the income statement for January 31st.
Motion by Councillor Zimmer. Question?
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to accept the consolidated statement of operations for the month ended January 31st, 2022 as presented.
Any further thoughts or comments? All in favor? Motion passed. Moving on to information brief, council committee reports. I guess
This is your report,
this
council.
is our reports.
You can speak to this one.
I've attended the play school meeting. Most important information is their AGM is May 3rd at 7 p.m. The Ag Society have some pretty interesting potential partnerships coming up. So just working on a few things for them. I also attended the CARES meeting. I got to learn about all sorts of things I didn't know anything about. Most important information that I would like to pass along with that is their AGM is March 17th at 7 p.m. Claresholm Housing Authority, I was also able to attend. This was so far one of my favorite boards that board meetings that I attended, and mostly because the organization of it, each individual who joins that board is given a binder with all of the information they need, and all of their yearly policies are reviewed. So it was pretty interesting to see. February 24th, I went to the Transportation Society. That one was one of interest. We met with AHS's EMS Area Management and Director of Operations Zone to discuss their new algorithm for transport of patients. Once again, AHS left me with more questions than answers, but the Transportation Society seems very eager and willing to do all they can to assist our community to mitigate some of our current issues. And then I went to the food bank as well, and that's what I did for the past 2 weeks. How's the Meister?
I don't know if I want to give as much information as you did, but it's all written there. The Seniors Drop-In Center seems to be doing well. We're attracting more memberships, and the Valentine's Tea that we had was excellent. A lot of people attended, and it was really, really well received. We did a Family Day Games Day, which we saw some younger people come through the door who seemed to show some interest that they would be coming back. I'm excited about the museum. I've been working on the photo booth for that for Winterfest and CARES. Well, it's really impressive how much work goes into running that facility. And again, they do a great job. And Claresholm Housing Authority, they're getting a lot of their family units updated, which is nice for the families. And the emergency evacuation plan we discussed in brief, and that needs to be gone over with the people in charge and renewed and updated. But overall, it's been a pretty good month.
Councillor Stoshberger?
I attended 3 webinars put on by the town of Pincher Creek, the EDO of Pincher Creek, and Natalie Gibson from Innovisions. She used to work for EDA. They have all the same problems we do, of course. On Main Street in Pincher Creek, there's 11 vacant buildings. Big problem. No housing, no land to build housing on. They're very, very concerned. Alberta Southwest, the Green Destinations voting is done. Our Peaks to Prairie project apparently is in the running. We'll see. At every Alberta Southwest, South Grow, ORSC meeting, we have a roundtable discussion where everybody gets to say something. Manton was questioning me on how we got Harvest Square. Library had, the board members had concerns about the grant application form. The MD representative had a lot of questions. I was quite vague. The hall board, our gas bill, our electricity bill over doubled in January, February. The gas bill is up by 50%. So the electricity bill was $3,829 for February, or January, February, and the gas bill was $1,600. So, yeah, lots of questions. Lots of repairs to be done. The west exit doors, you could throw a cat through. The roll up door for the window into the kitchen is held up by a stick when it's in use. If that falls on somebody, we have a liability issue. Our next casino is in second quarter of 2023. We just got permission to use our casino account to pay operating costs, which is not normally allowed, but we requested it. Oh, and the building needs grounded. Doesn't have a ground wire. I was very shocked with a building that size that's metal.
Thank you, Code 1966.
It needs a ground wire. That's about it.
Oh, thank goodness. Sorry. I was waiting for a little bit more bad news.
Next, I want electric, lightning cables.
Yeah. Well, thank you, councilors, for putting those in. I appreciate it. Moving on to information brief, CAO report. Gabe?
Yeah, report from the different departments on the activity over the last month. For your information, council.
Everyone had a chance to review it?
Yeah, that's great.
Any questions with it? Take it for information at this time. Moving on to 15, information brief, council resolution status. Gabe?
Status on the resolutions that council has passed over the last few meetings. Any questions on anything there?
Good.
Anyone? Take it for information at this point? Right. Moving on. 16, adoption of the information items. Adopted by Councillor Cutler. Question?
Moved by Councillor Cutler to adopt the information items as presented.
Any thoughts or comments? All in favor? Motion passed. Can we have a motion to move into camera? Motion by Councillor Cutler to move into camera. Camera off at 8:24 p.m., please. Can we have a motion to come out of camera?
I would like to make a motion to come out of in camera.
Motion by Councillor Zimmer to come out of in camera. Question?
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to come out of in camera at 9:30.
All in favor? Can we have motion for the local public body confidences, FOIP section 2.23.
I would like to make that motion.
Motion by Councillor Cutler. Question?
Moved by Councillor Cutler to provide a letter of support as discussed in closed session.
Any thoughts or comments? All in favor? Motion passed. Moving on, advice from officials, FOIP section 2.4. Are we able to get a motion for that? Motion by Councillor Carlson. Question?
Moved by Councillor Carlson to direct administration to proceed with the lagoon outlet structure upgrades option 1 as prepared by MGE Engineering Limited, and that the out-of-budget expenditure of $93,010 plus GST is to come from the municipal water and sewer reserves.
Any further discussion on this? All in favor? Motion passed. Moving on to 17D. Or no, sorry, 17C, land FOIP section 16. Do we have a motion to direct administration on this? Would anyone like to make it? Motion by Councillor Cutler. Question?
Moved by Councillor Cutler to proceed with the municipal land development initiative as discussed in closed session.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Motion passed. Moving on to 17D, confidential evaluations.
Put your arm down.
Motion by Councillor Cutler. Question?
Moved by Councillor Cutler to appoint Mike McAlonen to the Chinook Intermunicipal Subdivision and Development Appeal Board.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Passed. Motion to adjourn meeting.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting, please.
Thank you. Motion by Councillor Carlson. All in favor? Motion to adjourn at 9:33 p.m. Camera off.